Thank you all for joining us for today's live stream from Firaxis Games. My name is Pete Murray, and I'm joined today by Anton Strenger, who's one of the gameplay designers working on Civilization Beyond Earth. So we have a lot of cool stuff on Beyond Earth to show you guys today, obviously. But Anton, you're just back from PAX Prime, where you guys had the semi-annual Firaxis Mega Panel.
The Mega Panel, yeah. We had a really great turnout. It was about 1,000 people, a packed audience in the Sasquatch Theater. We were right next door to the Sandworm Theater, which I thought was a more fitting name for Beyond Earth panel, but we got the Sasquatch. And we packed it to the back. It was really fun. We had a great turnout, a lot of enthusiasm from the fans. We showed a live demo of the late game, seeing a lot of the purity and supremacy stuff. Yeah. Which was really cool.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I'm glad you guys had a good time. So, we do have quite a bit to show you today, but before we do that, I wanted to tell you real quick, Firaxicon, if you're coming, that's fantastic. That's our convention we're putting together on September 27th here in Hunt Valley. We have sold out of tickets at this point, but if you are still interested in going, pay attention to social media. There might be an opportunity for a couple of tickets to shake loose as people's plans finalize or change. And so if you're really desperate to go, we might have an opening later on. So keep an eye on Twitter and Facebook, both Civ Game and Firaxis and 2K, and we'll pass out that information as we get it. So at PAX Prime and at Gamescom this year, we showed a lot of late game purity and supremacy up to this point. And the big question that everybody's had going into this is, so what does late game harmony
look like? What does harmony look like? Yeah.
Yeah. Actually, a couple weeks ago, you shared a really cool save with me that was a late game harmony save.
I did, yeah.
We wanted to kind of get another sense of that, give people a chance to see what that looks like. So we're actually going to start today's show before we get into the meat of it. I want to show you late game harmony, so you guys get an opportunity to see that.
Yeah, and just in case you were wondering, it's just as awesome as the other two affinities. And I actually played kind of a militaristic harmony game, which was really fun. I was plopping down miasmic condensers in the enemy that I was invading. I totally wiped out Pan-Asia, even though they were on another continent. And then I built the Mind Flower and just kind of had it behind a wall of Xenos Titans and Roctopuses. And
yeah.
It was a great time.
It's interesting. I actually think harmony is one of the... It lends itself very well to a kind of a rush horde strategy for your military. So it is very much an effective domination affinity if you want to go with that. All right, so we're going to jump into the game real quick. So this is a game that I was playing last week. Actually, when we had last week's live stream, we started playing this save. We started out with Freeland, and harmony opens up, and the relationship that you have with the aliens at the beginning of the game and how that evolves over time. But this is what happens at the end of the game. So here's our capital city of Freeland right here. As you can see, we've got the harmony architecture totally dominating us. We have these bio-wells outside of the city. This is a tile improvement that any faction or any affinity can build. It's really great for both food and health.
Yeah, it's really useful for health.
Yeah, especially when you're trying to drive that up. They are expensive to maintain, but that's really not so much of an issue. There are various technologies you can get that increase the energy yield off them, and that helps mitigate the cost of it a little bit. But you'll see them interspersed throughout the landscape. So the real hero of this is my production city up here. I'm going to scroll up a little bit. There, to the left of it, near Jim Boomba, is the Mind Flower. And so you guys recall, harmony wins the game by constructing the Mind Flower, which over time sort of absorbs energy and the consciousness of the creatures on the planet and will eventually push you to win the game. And there are things you can do to accelerate this process, right?
Right, yeah. There's a Mind Stem building, which you can unlock on the tech web. And so if you have a lot of cities and you construct the Mind Stem building in them, that makes the Mind Flower activate more quickly. So that's like a good strategy, especially if you have a lot of cities scattered around the map. You can get a lot of mind stems going and really kind of make it burn fast. And the alternative is you could just kind of, like you've done here, kind of nestle it up against a mountain, mountain on one side, city on the other, and just make it really defensible. And maybe it takes a long time, but whoever's going to try to make trouble for you is going to have a real hard time getting in.
Definitely, definitely. So in this game, I was playing as Australia, and I actually just finished a war with another Harmony faction over here. Pardon my bobble on the mouse real quick. The old Slavic Federation. They have a tendency to regard every unoccupied tile in the game as belonging to them inherently. We just concluded hostilities. He's going to have to withdraw. this Cavalry unit that's up here. But I've got some Harmony unique units and some Harmony flavored units that I kind of want to show off to you guys. This is the Xena Swarm.
Yeah.
This is actually one of the earliest unique units you get access to in the game. As I recall, I think this is the one you can get first out of all three.
It is the first, yeah. It unlocks at Harmony level 4. And it requires 1 Xenomass to make, but, you know, by the time you get later in Harmony and you start getting Xenomass wells everywhere, that's not much of a cost. And it's very cheap to produce. It's not as powerful as, like, say, the Battlesuit on the Purity line, but it's a very effective unit. You can kind of build them very quickly and have them kind of swarm the battlefield.
Yeah, provided you've got the Xenomass to do it, which really doesn't, I mean, at 1 Xenomass, that's pretty easy to do. If you've ever built Swordsman as Rome, you're familiar with the necessity of strategic iron.
Yeah.
Real quick, there's another one next to it. I just wanted to show you what it gets. This is the explosive one, which I love because it's like, oh, okay, so you killed my cheap unit and it's going to take you down on the way out.
Yeah, so I mentioned that they're one of the cheapest to produce and they're not as strong as some of the earlier unique units on the other affinities, but what they lack in strength, they make up for in efficiency, and in this case, like because you chose this perk, you actually almost want them to kill her. You just kind of put them on your front lines, and your opponents are going to be kind of scratching their heads. It's like, well, I could kill him, but he's also going to hurt me a whole lot, or I could just try to bombard them from far, or retreat and try to attack them from another angle.
Yep.
So it's a really nice road bump that you can kind of like put in the obstacles of your opponents.
Yep. All right, I've got some Marauders. These are Tier 4 Harmony Marines. I wanted to show you some of the unit promotions I've been choosing. Plus 15% when attacking.
Yep.
This is kind of my go-to, although I find for Purity that heal is also pretty benefit. These guys also blow up when they die. Because
it's a fun thing Harmony can do, yeah.
Yeah, and packing your front lines with these guys, or when you don't have the Xenamass necessarily to produce tons of Xena Swarms, also makes them fairly effective. But this is my favorite. Plus 30%. Attacking and defending in miasma, and this is kind of Harmony's Great Wall of China approach. Like you said, flood the area with miasma, and I've actually got on the orbital layer here, I have a miasma condenser that's kind of going to form a choke point here for the future. So that's what those guys are waiting for. They're going to be in good shape with that. Just Harmony Siege unit down here. That's been kicking around for a while. It doesn't need to set up before it attacks.
I can just shoot right away.
Yeah, which is really, really handy, especially for a very mobile, aggressive front on that. More effective on defense against ranged, and really good at bombarding cities. So it's a good thing he sued me for peace because I was coming for the city of Izot there. And we got some more Harmony unique units down here. Again, another Xena Swarm, but somebody asked me to zoom in. All right, the evolved Xeno Cavalry.
Yeah.
So the Xeno Cavalry, if the Xena Swarm is the cheap horde unit, this is Harmony's hit and run troop.
Yeah, these guys are really good at, they have a lot of movement. They have some, like it looks like you have a miasma unit perk down there as well for making them better. Yeah,
correct.
So they're really good at moving around, at outmaneuvering the enemy. They also have, they can kind of better defend themselves from ranged attacks than most other units can. So their kind of strategy is to form up the flanks of your army and kind of, sneak around and attack the squishy like siege units and other things that are behind enemy lines.
They're also really good for taking out unprotected workers.
Yes.
Sneaking around sides of things.
And pillaging too, if that's your thing.
Yeah. But here's the big boy. This is the Xeno Titan. And this is Harmony's unique unit. I might have quick movement on. Oh, I do. But here you can see a little bit more of him.
Barely fits on a hex.
Yeah. This is absolutely enormous.
Yeah.
So this guy is 7 Xenamass to produce, and unlike Purity's Lev Destroyer, which is going to, kind of rock wall its way and bombard cities, or Supremacy's Angel, which has really high ranged attack value, this is a straight up
in your face
melee unit. So 96 attack.
And that's unupgraded. Once you reach Harmony level 18, the final Harmony level, it'll upgrade once more. And you can the attack strength will go up, I believe, to 120. So it's
solves a lot of problems.
It's the strongest unit in the game. Yeah, but it also has to make its way across the terrain. So yeah, if you going up against someone that's Purity and they have a lot of Lab Destroyers just hanging out behind the enemy lines. Like if you don't, take care of that problem, say with your Xeno Cavalry, the Titan might be in trouble, though it does have a high defense value as well.
Yep. All right, so again, this was the final evolution of the save that we showed you guys in last week's live stream, and I know a lot of you were really interested in seeing what a late game Harmony faction looks like, and this is what it's going to look like. Harmony, definitely something you're going to want to check out. All right, so let's we'll step out of the game for a moment as we get ready to load into our next save. And what we wanted to talk about in today's live stream are two systems that interact pretty closely with each other, technology and the virtues. The virtue systems we've touched on before on these live streams. We've made rushed choices through them, touched very briefly on what the branches are and roughly how they can interact with each other. But I thought today people really want some more detail on that, and people want to see the tooltips. So today, we'll go through
all the nitty-gritty details. Yeah. Sounds good.
So the setup I'm going to take you into today is a little bit of a potted situation. It's a tiny map. It's a duel. There's only one other faction on the map. It's African Union. We are playing as the Slavic Federation. You can think of it as a micro version of that save I made for myself when we played on the other day. Just so you can see, we tried to get into kind of a mid-game range of things so you can start to see how the synergies start to form and things like that. So we'll go ahead, and in just a moment we will load into our game here. So this is kind of where we were. Got an explorer out at sea here. Here's Magan, the capital city of the People's African Union. I've been able to explore a lot of the map here because I got very lucky in one of my early explorations, and I actually got a drone.
Yes.
So expeditions, which your explorers can undertake, yield a variety of things for you to find. And when you investigate things like alien skeletons, one of the potential items you can uncover is an alien unit under your control. Sometimes that's a wolf beetle pack. Sometimes it's a drone. It's pretty cool. Yeah. So I got really lucky. This guy has been a fantastic scout. I also used him to help clear out some nests up here a little while ago because we're going to plant a city up there, and I'll talk about that later on. But, excuse me, right now we were being prompted to develop a virtue. So let's go ahead and we'll jump into the virtue screen here. If you've missed our previous live streams, there are 4 virtue trees that you can choose from. Might is focused on improving your military and raising your affinity levels. Prosperity is focused on sort of developing the expansiveness of your settlement. It has bonuses for both health and sort of population spread.
Yeah, and a lot of food as well.
Yeah, a lot of food. Knowledge, focused on both technology and culture, a very synergistic kind of tree on its own. Yeah. And industry, which is focused on production. So what I've been doing so far is I really like opening sometimes with might, sometimes with knowledge, depending on how things are going. Since we know technology is important in Civ, let's go ahead and we'll focus on the first 5 knowledge virtues real quick. Some of these we've covered before. Foresight, which is your first one, gives you a bonus of science when you're healthy. So. Yeah.
Pretty solid buff. As long as you can keep your civilization, in the green with health, it's going to serve you well the whole game.
Yeah, this is especially strong towards the end of the game when your health really isn't a concern.
Yeah, you get technologies to kind of overcome it. You've learned how to adapt to the planet.
Yeah, then it's really, really a solid one. Social mores. This is kind of a cool one. So each city tile produces a quarter culture for every population. This is one of those things that, especially if you go tall and you have high population cities, there's a lot of passive culture.
Exactly, yeah. And this, picking social mores in the early game isn't going to pay off right away, but definitely towards the end game as you have giant cities with lots of food, this is really going to turn into a huge bonus. So this is kind of like laying, a lot of these early knowledge virtues are kind of laying the foundation for a really strong science and culture game later on.
And what's especially important to notice is that social mores branches into 2 directions here. And if you want access to this right-hand path, you basically need to unlock this early on. And so there's...
Yeah, that's more central, yeah.
Yeah, something you're going to want to do. This is a cool one. Field research, earn 50 beakers for finishing expeditions. Expeditions are something you do a lot of early on in the game.
Yeah, that's how you got the drone unit.
Yeah, exactly. And so, 50 science plus a drone unit, please. That's like, that's awesome. For 4 turns of waiting was fantastic. We were playing on quick, by the way. That speed increase takes longer the slower your game speed.
Sure.
So just like social mores, we have one that applies for science as well too. This is the laboratory apprenticeship. So again, you can kind of another passive modifier that tacks onto everything that your cities are doing. And finally, our last tier 1 virtue is creative class, and this is pretty cool because you get extra culture if you're staying in positive health. So again, another incentive to not grow too fast and keep that culture and that science bonus going for you.
Yeah, and this is the first of kind of like a series of 2 or 3 of these in the knowledge tree where kind of doing well in one category can kind of translate over and help you do well in another one. So in this case, positive health is going to give you extra culture. Later on, you're going to see culture giving you science as well, which is one of the more powerful things you get later down the tree.
Techno Artisans, we'll talk on that one later on. So I think knowledge pairs really nicely with anything in the game. But one of the surprisingly synergistic virtue categories is actually might. I think pairs really well. This is a pairing you're going to want to look at if you're the kind of guy who likes to run a Civ 5 Korea style, tiny, high-tech military kind of thing. I think you'd be interested in adaptive tactics, which is the opener. That's plus 50 experience from combat. That's always a plus. Those first unit promotions come a lot faster because of that. This is pretty good, especially if you are going into purity. The plus 25% strength and ranged attack against alien life forms. This is basically bugs check in and they don't check out.
Yeah, so this and then the one beneath it in tier 2, which we'll see later, this is kind of like a path that you can take on the might tree that allows you to deal very effectively and aggressively with aliens. And it's on the side because you don't need to get it. If you're playing more of a peaceful game with the aliens, you don't have to go that way. You can go down the center instead. But it's there if you want the option. And certainly, there are a lot of advantages to taking a strong stance against the aliens if you can keep up with it.
Even for Harmony players, you may want to consider these as bonuses because, occasionally a siege worm shows up somewhere you don't want it to be. You are going to have to clear out alien nests from time to time, and even though you are going to be recovering kind of your relationship with them faster than everybody else, the ability to not have to go turn after turn after turn of punching in the face is always really good. Yeah,
and the strength that you get against them too is it's not only on attack, it's also on defense. So like if you just happen to have a soldier caught out in the wilderness by itself, it might live to tell the tale instead of dying right away.
Yep. Oh, sorry, military industrial complex. This is just straight up bonus towards military units for production.
Crank them out faster. Yeah.
Yep. That's always nice to have. Public security. This is very interesting, I think. So it's positive health for every military unit under your command.
Yeah.
So you build 4 soldiers, you get an extra health, and you get a border security guy too.
Yeah.
So if you've got the gold or the energy that you can keep the maintenance up on these guys.
The maintenance becomes the prohibitive element if you do it too much. But this is a great way for if you have a large empire, and if you're doing a particularly aggressive game, you're going for domination victory, something like that. It allows that your large army to kind of do its part not only in war but also in peacetime, kind of keeping your people happy, mitigating some of that negative health that might otherwise start crippling you.
Right. Then this is one that's fascinating, but kind of situational.
It's
Liberation Army. So if you conquer an enemy outpost, instead of it turning into a kind of a derelict settlement, it becomes your outpost.
Yeah.
So this is, like we'll remind everybody, as you an outpost, it takes a few turns to develop. Actually, quite a few turns in some cases.
Yeah, 15 to 20, depending on your modifiers and game speed and stuff. But it's going to be a while before it's effective on its own.
So there's this period of time where you could conceivably, move in and take it from somebody. And the AI is not bad at choosing tiles that are, good for city placement.
Yeah.
Especially when they tend to do it, forward settling somewhere you would want to go to.
Yeah, that's happened to me a couple times in my recent playthroughs, especially around strategic resources that I was really going for. They will gobble those up quickly if you're not careful.
ARC and the Slavic Federation, biggest defenders. So we'll talk about kind of this alien path over here. We'll talk about how that synergizes with knowledge later on. But the big bonuses for kind of growth and happiness come over here in the Prosperity branch. Frugality, which is your first one, is plus 10% food retained after a city grows. that's going to really start moving your population up when you don't, you're saving yourself a few turns of stockpiling food to get to the next pop.
Yeah, especially if you get it early on and you can kind of get that bonus going for you through the whole game. It'll really pay itself back.
And there's, what I really like about the Prosperity tree is the two of the options available in it that I'll talk about now. One of them is Workforce Initiative is a free worker unit. If you didn't pack that worker on your ship and you happen to have landed in a spot where there aren't hills or maybe aren't resources that are boosting your production, this is a way to get a worker out, in pretty good order.
Yeah.
You should be fine on that. So that's if you're willing to trade virtue for hammers, that's always a good option for you. And then another free one over here, is Colony Initiative. So gain a free colonist unit. This is very handy. And I actually chose this one in this game because I was focusing very heavily on energy development in my capital and didn't want to take the time that it would be to develop a full colony out. So
it does take quite a while to form a colonist, and you have to have research pioneering and stuff too. And that second city is definitely worth it when it comes online. But if you really want to just kind of bypass that and have your capital continue on its merry way and get your colonist here, it'll pay off great. Of course, it costs you virtue for one, but also that doesn't lead anywhere. So if you want to go deeper in the prosperity tree, you're going to have to go down the main branch as well, because the colony initiative is kind of the end of the line.
Yep. All right, and let's look at the last one in the main branch, which is Helping Hands. Just solid boost of speed for tile improvements. This is especially effective on some of the longer game speeds where you're going to be waiting 10, 15 turns for a Terrascape to go in. Or
Terrascapes especially, right?
Manufactories, they're another good one to try to get in pretty quickly.
Yeah, or if you're opting not to do the orbital path and want to clear or add miasma kind of in batches, that'd be very useful for that as well.
Yeah, that's very true. All right, and then finally we have the industry branch. This is plus 10% productions towards buildings. That's pretty straightforward. And then this immediately goes down into its 3 sub-branches, plus 15% production towards wonders. So your Civ can be Egypt itself in space.
Egypt in space.
Yep.
Yeah.
This does have its own little path here, but this is kind of a cool one.
Yeah. Another really nice thing about this one is that it also applies to Planetary Wonders. So that mine flower that takes 20, 30 turns to construct, you're getting 15% production towards that in the late game, which in the late game, if it's getting down to the wire, if an invasion force is on the way, those extra 5 turns of production could make the difference between winning and losing.
Absolutely. This is Central Planning, plus 5 energy in the capital. This is really pretty useful early in the game. This lets you start building in buildings faster because you can pay for the upkeep of them.
That's the thing, a lot of the useful buildings require 1 energy maintenance, if not 2. And what I find myself doing is I'll get a lot of really cool buildings, but then I'll have to kind of backtrack and fill in with a thorium reactor as one of the early energy buildings, just to make sure that my maintenance isn't dipping negative. But if you have this, you can kind of just keep on building buildings and buff your other yields instead.
Yeah. Plus 1 energy from every basic resource. So when you get one of these like crazy resource starts,
the tubers or the silica.
Well, or even one of these things where you're lucky and you get like a double. You might get a chitin and a
sometimes they cluster
or something like that. Yeah, that's something you're going to want to consider again. Especially as you expand out, that trickle of energy from each basic resource is going to be just fantastic. So very, very useful to have. And then finally, standardized architecture. This is the old Roman trick of if you can build it in the capital,
Rome,
you can build it anywhere. So this is very, very handy to have, especially if you go, especially towards late game, kind of bringing a new city up to speed fast is
exactly. I find like my capital's kind of always at the head of the curve with the buildings, building the latest science buildings or the culture buildings, depending on what strategy I'm going for. And so having all your cities be able to catch up 25% faster is really great.
Yeah. So let's talk about synergy bonuses. When you research all of the Tier 1 techs for a particular category, you get a Tier 1 synergy bonus plus 10% energy in every city.
Well, that's actually if you go if you get 5 in the industry tree specifically.
5 in the industry tree, right?
Yeah. So if we get, for example, those first 5, or if we decide to go straight down, and any 5 in that purple column there will give us that.
Again, is one of those that stacks up very long. I do like this plus 10% culture in every city. This is something that just blows up huge later in the game when you've got your alien paddocks and your Xeno sanctuaries and things like that.
All the buildings that are turning out a lot of culture, everything adds up, and the 10% is going to be huge in the late game. Yeah. And it'll help you get more virtues. So if you invest in knowledge early, the benefits are kind of more groundwork. They're not going to pay off as much right away, but by the late game, you're going to be able to branch into other virtues as well and pick up benefits there.
Prosperities is plus 10% growth in every city. Again, nothing to sneeze at, and that stacks on top of food retained and all the other food modifiers that branch brings with it. And then might, straight up plus 5% strength. Everybody becomes a soldier plus 1. That's kind of fun. But there's a trick to the synergies here, and that's when we go into these breadth kickers here. Right. So if you choose any 5 tier 1,
6 actually.
Any 6.
It's changed a couple times, but now it's 6.
Now, see what you did?
It's design is my prerogative. I gotta change everything to make sure.
But what I like is that all you have to do is pick another, complete one tree.
Exactly.
Or complete one tier, and then pick one tier 1 from any other branch, and you get a free virtue. So it's almost like buy one, get one free.
It is.
You just go a little bit broad.
Yeah, and that was kind of intentional. Yeah, so say you're in the early game and you're going down the knowledge tree, and you pick up all those first 5. For just, if you keep going down knowledge, you're going to get the knowledge synergy bonuses. You're going to get to some of the later knowledge stuff, which is really cool. But, for just one more in that first tier, just pick one in might, pick one in prosperity, pick one in industry. You get a free virtue. So it's like a buy one, get one free. And it's a way to encourage players to, not just pick one category and stay there the whole game. It kind of encourages players to branch out and kind of multi-class in a way and experiment with, maybe I'll take a little bit of might stuff.
Well, let's look at tier 2 now. We're actually going to go ahead and start with knowledge again. Cohesive values, minus 10% culture needed for new virtues. This is great because it's kind of takes away some of the cost. That escalating virtue cost becomes cheaper to manage, especially later on in late game. That's 10% can be quite a lot when you're looking at your 20th virtue to develop.
Exactly.
We've got applied aesthetics. So now what's interesting is you're getting energy equal to the culture you generate.
Right.
So you can, I guess you're really good at making commercials or something like that.
It's a commercialized art, I suppose.
This one right here, networked data links. What's interesting about this is this starts to mitigate some of the breadth penalties for having a lot of cities. Minus 50% penalty is pretty substantial. So it keeps those techs cheaper even if you start to broaden out a little bit. So you guys are removing some of the cost of going broad from where it's been in Civ 5.
A little bit, yeah. Players of Civ 5 might remember that as they expand, the cost of social policies for culture would go up, and as a Brave New World, the cost of technologies would also go up slightly as well. And we've retained that in Beyond Earth because that's a really nice balance point to make sure that bigger isn't always better. You can have a viable, small but powerful empire. But if you do still want to go big and you don't want to get hit with those kind of science and culture penalties, you can invest in culture, which will be hard early on because you have a lot of cities. But you can pick up these bonuses and that'll mitigate a lot of the penalties, and you can keep going much like normal. So yeah.
And then if you didn't go down this branch, this is where you start to get access to the right-hand side of the tree again. And now we've got meme web, which I always envision as the scholarly study of lolcats and things like that. But it mitigates the culture penalty so it's the same sort of thing, but with culture this time.
Exactly.
So that's very, very handy. And then finally, +1 health for every 6 population in a city. This is pretty cool because this starts to take away the sting of having a huge city.
It starts to, and it's not as effective as, say, the prosperity tree is, but every virtue tree has something to kind of help them out in the health department, and this is knowledge's version of it.
Okay. So let's go back over to the might tree, which we were looking at earlier. This is cool. Scavenging. Earn 100% of an alien life form strength of science after killing it, and earn
that's 20.1. Yeah. So this is because we're playing on quick speed. It's doing some math.
Yeah.
And 20.1 is it's 30 on standard speed.
Okay.
Rounds down to 20.1.
Yeah. But this is, you know, kill aliens and learn about them.
Exactly. Kind of scavenge their corpses and see what they're doing and apply it to your own research of, you know, xenobiology and stuff like that.
My favorite play with this one was the turn I unlocked this and then killed a siege worm on the same turn.
There you go. That's like 60 strength, so.
It was just this huge glut of science.
Yeah.
I remember going like, woo! We learned a lot that day. There was a lot of technology unlocked.
Making labs out of siege worm scales.
Pretty much. The Cal State siege worms. Adaptive sciences. Plus 20% affinity earned from researching technologies. So, explain this a little bit.
Yeah.
What does it mean to get 20% of an affinity?
Yeah, so the early technology, each leaf technology that has an affinity gives a sort of different amount of that affinity score. And the levels of affinities require more score as you get higher up. So for example, the first level of harmony, purity, supremacy, whatever affinity you decide to go in, will cost 12 affinity points towards that affinity. And the early leaf technologies that you get also give 12 points, so it's kind of just enough to level up.
Amazing.
Yeah, but if you have this virtue, then you're getting 20% more, so 2.4 more affinity points for that technology, which sounds small, and it kind of is, but later on when you're researching leaf technologies that have 40 affinity points, that's substantial. And that basically what this is going to do, especially if you get it early, because it doesn't kind of pay itself backwards, is when you research technologies, you're going to get more affinity points, and you're going to level up your military units faster. And you're also going to get those affinity perks faster, the ones that we were talking about last week.
Yeah, and then what's also important to know is that you can't pursue your affinity-specific victory until you get to level 12 on that. So,
13, I believe.
13 now? Stop balancing the game.
I'm sorry.
So once you get to level 13, then you can build the Mind Flower, you
Yeah.
can build the Warp Gate, you can, whatever it is the case may be. So if you're at 10 and you've researched the necessary tech, you know how to do it. Your people just haven't committed to it. This is the virtue that's going to get you there faster.
Yeah,
so
that's an excellent point. Yeah, this could be a way to early rush a victory.
Yeah. Special service plus 40% intrigue from covert operations. That's a lot of intrigue.
Yeah.
And so you can do things like, you know, okay, I'm going to establish a network in the other guy's capital. I'm going to level up my my spy, and then whoops, okay, now I'm going to start stealing tax, or you know, laying the groundwork for that dirty bomb or siege worm attractor.
Exactly, yeah. And as you level up your affinities too with the other parts of the might tree, you get access to the kind of more advanced covert operations as well. And the covert ops system is really cool. And even from the sort of base level intrigue, like even if you're showing up in a city in the backwater of this planet for the first time and nothing's really going on, you can still do some useful stuff. You can steal some energy off their trade routes, you can establish a network and find out what's going on. But the really cool stuff happens once spies kind of like do a lot of activity there and the intrigue level ramps up. So having your own operations kind of cause more intrigue in these cities that your rivals are controlling gives you quicker access to those high-level, really lucrative covert ops.
Absolutely. And then this stacks with things like ARC's bonuses.
Exactly. So she gets another 25% on top of this, so she's doing, you know, 2/3 more intrigue with every operation.
Yeah.
Devious.
Yeah, and expensive. Gotta love the ARC. This is neat. This is just get a free affinity level. What's fun is if you're already pretty far advanced on your, so say you're pursuing might as maybe your third tree, or you're splitting your second tree development so that you're going pretty far down tier 2 after finishing knowledge or prosperity or something. Sometimes you can use this to level up an ancillary virtue, but I guess most people are going to want to use this to accelerate their main affinity as well.
Yeah, depending on when you reach this in the game. If you're going might, that's like your first choice and you're going deep, you're not going for the breadth synergy bonuses, you're going for the depth ones in the might tree, then yeah, you're probably going to reach this early on. You can use it to level it up. It's probably going to give you some unit upgrades. If on the other hand, yeah, maybe you're later in the game, you've already maxed out one affinity, and you're kind of coming by this later on, because maybe you decide to go for a domination victory, or you need to defend your mind flower, so you're kind of pumping up some military stuff with the virtues.
Yeah.
This can give you kind of like an off-color affinity, which will give you some perks as well, like the like Purity's level 1 is explorers can't be attacked by aliens. A lot of that stuff is useful even when you're not that primary affinity.
Right. And then Army Engineering Corps. This is pretty cool. So extra production and extra energy from each strategic resource. So these are not the basic resources. This is this applies to things like your Foresight,
your Xenomass, your titanium, yeah.
But even geothermal and petroleum.
Geothermal as well, yeah, and petroleum.
So that's really going to, a late game, mid and late game energy source, you need it to power some of your late game wonders.
Some of the later wonders, yeah. You can discover it early on, you can reveal it and kind of improve it for a lot of energy, but it's not actually used by things until later on.
Okay, so
but the things it's used by, quite powerful, yeah.
But those strategic resources, the more you can do with them, obviously, the better you're going to be with that. So that's pretty potent right there.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Prosperity. This is a cool one. Explorer units can build 3 additional expeditions.
Yeah.
So after your explorer runs his expedition out, he doesn't have his expedition module left. He has to head back to a city.
Yeah, and resupply.
He basically has to pass through the city tile.
Yeah.
He gets his gear back on and then heads back out in the field.
Yeah, which if you're halfway across the map, because your explorer was a good explorer and was exploring far away, can be quite tedious and slow down your expeditions. By the time you turn around, go back to your city, refill, and go back, the AI may have dug that up already. So this bonus allows you to be out in the field. It applies to your units already in the field too. So if you happen to have one guy stranded out there without a module, it'll give him 3 more, and you can kind of stay out there longer and dig up all the best stuff first.
Very cool. And then this stacks with Supremacy's additional
the level
module
1, exactly, yeah. So you can get up to 5 total modules.
It's a lot of exploring.
Yes.
That also saves you from building a lot of Pathfinders, or a lot of Explorers too,
That's
which
true.
is kind of a production savings.
Especially early on, yeah.
Provided you don't let them die in miasma, like I do. Pioneer Spirit, this is great. This is 25% less culture needed for border expansion, so even if you don't have the population to work those tiles, you're going to get control of them pretty fast.
Yeah.
That's pretty straightforward there. And then this is where Prosperity kind of forks. You've got 2 different directions to go. One of them is +2 population for newly founded cities. This is one, I feel like by the time this comes up, I'm usually looking at my 3rd or my 4th city.
Yeah.
Especially if I'm investing heavily in Prosperity. And so,
right.
you know, I always feel like I want it for my 2nd city, but it never quite works out that way.
Yeah, especially if you're getting the free colonist initiative up above. Yeah, this is meant more for like your mid-game and late game, if you're settling any in the late game, to get those cities off the ground and kind of get them on their feet much faster.
Right. And then gift economy. So this is crazily powerful with Australia. So it's extra energy from any trade route, and with Australia's ability to get extra.
Yeah, and specifically this is for international trade routes. So you can kind of, through your building choices and your virtue choices, decide whether to kind of focus more on international trade, more on internal trade, or more on station trade. Mm-hmm. And they each have their own benefits, different kind of yield profiles that you'll get. So this is probably the best one out there for international trade, which happens very frequently. A lot of partners to trade with by the end game.
Absolutely. And then finally, +7 health. Mind over matter. So this is going to start mitigating. This is almost a full city's worth of health you're applying at this point.
Yeah, if it's a new city, I think it's actually slightly more. So this, yeah, I think that Harmony game that I was showing you 2 weeks ago, I was going heavily Prosperity, and then I branched into Knowledge later on. And this kind of saved me. I'd conquered a lot of Pan-Asia cities and took Mind over Matter, and it almost got me in the green. Not quite. I still had to build some buildings, but I was at -10 health, and it brought me back where I could kind of make up the difference in my buildings.
And this is where some of these synergies later on in the game start to develop too. So when there's a lot of things in Prosperity, especially in this tier 3 we're going to go to, that up health by quite a bit, and then when you're doing that and stacking that with extra culture when you're happy, extra science when you're healthy,
right?
That's quite a powerful combination later on in the game, and having access to that bonus is going to do you quite a world of good.
Yeah.
And now finally we're going to move into industry. So 1% of stockpiled energy every turn, up to 100 energy.
This is one of my favorites. Yeah.
Yeah. This is quite a little little trickle of energy that comes in every turn.
It is, yeah, and it's kind of when I play with this, it kind of does something interesting to me in my brain, and like it kind of like counter to what I'm used to in like Civ 5 and Beyond Earth before we tried this out, where you have a giant stockpile of energy, and there's plenty of things to spend it on. You can spend it on military units if you're in a pinch. You can spend it on buildings in a new city to kind of get it off its feet much faster. But this gives you another option, and that's to save it. Because when you save it, you'll get even more. And kind of a fun story of game development, there actually didn't used to be this up to 100 energy restriction. So it's just it was just 1%. And then there's a kicker in the industry synergy bonus that gives another 1%, so it's up to 2. And it was a little too powerful.
Yeah. Yeah,
because it's compound interest is this is my math nerdiness showing, but yeah, it's it can be pretty powerful. So we put a cap on it, but yeah, up to 100 energy, up to 200 if you got this energy bonus as well. It's nothing to sneeze at.
No, absolutely not. Extra production towards orbital units, very helpful. You still will need the strategic resources, the petroleum, the titanium
for the layer ones, yeah,
for the orbital units, but that's going to make those planet carvers. That's going to make that laser comm sat like a lot cheaper to develop.
Yeah.
Lose less time on that.
I've noticed too, like with the orbital units, if I stack enough kind of orbital production modifiers, I can get to the point where I can build most of them, especially the early ones, in like 1 or 2 turns.
Right.
So if I'm in a pinch again, and I'm like, oh man, like I need a TACnet hub over my military front right now. My people are dying. I can build it. I can have it out the next turn. Or I can use industry's kind of energy economy to just buy one too. That works as well.
Absolutely. Profiteering is health for trade units, so that's pretty straightforward. Again, if you're a big trader, that's going to serve much in the same sense that the military units did in the virtue, in the might virtue. So that's good. Alternative markets, trade routes with station grant +6 energy per station tier. That's a lot of energy.
Yeah. So the way that trade with station works is as you continue to trade with them, they kind of level up and they get an additional tier, and their bonuses go up when you trade with them, and this gives you another bonus on top of that. It gives you some energy as well.
Right. And then plus 25% more yield from your trade routes to your own city. So this, when you've got the trade routes set up the way they are in Civ, and you're getting those yields from them, this just makes them that much stronger.
Yeah.
All right, let's look at the level 2 synergy bonuses, plus 10% production in every city. Doesn't matter for what, it's just flat plus 10%.
Yeah, a lot of the synergy bonuses are pretty straightforward, but very generally useful and powerful.
Yeah, another plus 10% science in every city, very handy. Plus 1 health for every city. This is pretty fantastic because this starts, again, adding that health, helping to kind of offset the cost of spreading out. And then for might, another plus 5%. And this stacks with the previous plus 5%, so now all of our units are 10% stronger. So everybody is Brazilian now.
But not just for melee, for everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's true. That's very true. All right. Tier 2's synergy bonuses. Again, there's the buy 1 tier, get 1 free, which is kind of cool. And a free covert agent, which is very, very handy to have.
Yes.
So you always need more covert agent coverage. Let's go ahead and we're just going to jump straight into the tier 3 virtues because we're moving through on time. Brutal efficiency, plus 50% quantity from sources of strategic resources. This reminds me of from Brave New World, where it's just like, okay, you want more resources, you got them.
Yeah. So this is very useful if you're trying to, for example, conquer the world. Buy 1 Zeno Titan, get 1.5 free, kind of thing.
Integrated arms, plus 10% production towards unit for each upgrade it has. What that does is that actually makes these units cheaper as they get more advanced.
Right. Normally when you upgrade units, they get more expensive to produce because they're much better in terms of their statistics and their capabilities. And what this does is it kind of mitigates that. Every time you upgrade a unit, it gets plus 10% production towards it.
Yeah. All right. And then joint operations, plus 3 orbital coverage provided by stations you trade with. So what happens now is those stations actually act as coverage points for you.
Yeah, you kind of proxy cities in a way.
That's pretty cool.
So if there's a station next to someone that you want to invade, and you start trading with that station, not only will that station give you some yields, but also you'll have the coverage. You can plop a military satellite, maybe a phasal transporter, and drop in some units to to start wreaking havoc.
That would be fun. Democratized quartering, this is just a maintenance reducer. So now, not only are units cheaper to build, they're cheaper to maintain.
Right.
So that big army that you need to take over the world, you've got it.
Yeah.
You can pay for it. And then Channeled Wrath, so this is another plus 10% strength and range strength. This is stacking on top of everything you've earned up to this point.
Yeah.
And so by that point, by the time you're there, you've gotten another free affinity level for finishing out the might virtues.
Right.
You've gotten plus 10% ranged and melee combat.
Yeah.
Plus another plus 10%. So you're 20% stronger.
Yeah.
That's pretty awesome.
It's pretty sizable, yeah.
This is from Prosperity, Nature's Bounty. Plus 1 production from every basic resource. Every basic resource now is chitin.
Yeah, a little knock in production, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That comes down to hands never idle. Your specialists, so working in those, like your reactors and your tech labs, they're going to be able to provide you with additional energy as well too. Again, helps offset some of the maintenance costs for having a bunch of buildings of that kind.
Right.
And then Eudaimonia. I'm going to tell a story on myself here. So we were coming up with names for these, and
all right, yeah. I know where you're going with this.
You know where I'm going with this.
There's one. It's in the industry tree.
Oh,
yeah,
okay. Well, then we'll come to that one later on.
Yeah, a lot of these names actually came from yours truly, Pete Murray. He was really helpful with brainstorming some of the ideas for me, and like I came up with a lot of the gameplay effects, but we had some great collaboration going back and forth.
It was a lot of fun, but I'll tell you about the time I really screwed up. When we get to industry. Joy from Variety, plus 1 health for each type of basic resource that is improved. This is fantastic. This is really going to push you, because especially as you expand and you start getting access to new basic resources, that's really going to do you a lot of favors in the health department there. And then this one, Ecoscaping, takes those terrascapes and just adds 1, makes them 50% stronger.
Yeah, so terrascapes provide 2 food, 2 production, 2 culture. This gives them 1 more of everything. So, you know, that heavy maintenance cost that terrascapes have, it's going to give you that much more stuff for paying the same price.
So very, very valuable to have. All right, knowledge. Meta research methods, leaf technologies become cheaper. That's especially important later on in the game where you're going into your leaf techs to get your specific affinity-related things. Makes them easier to unlock. Information warfare. This is not something that you need unless you're going for completeness' sake, but an extra covert agent is never a bad thing, especially when you can leave him to cover.
Yeah, just counterintelligence in your own cities, yeah.
Which is especially a concern if you're way tacked up on everybody else and they're trying to steal stuff.
Right.
Having to protect there. Learning centers. The Academy improvement is a tile improvement that you can build that generates science for you. This just adds to the amount of science that they produce. It makes them that much stronger.
Yeah.
Monomyth. Plus 7 culture for every great wonder. And that's going to take all of those culture wonders you built, all those science wonders, and really just start to stack them back into it. This is really, you're not necessarily going to use it to finish off knowledge, but that's really going to help you start to build out your next virtue tree.
Yeah.
And then finally, this is Techno Artisans. 25% of your culture every turn gets turned into science.
Yeah. And
that's just going to be fantastic. Knowledge is tier 3 kicker. 1 free tech. Oxford University's for everybody. Okay, finally in industry, we've got social investment. The manufacturing improvement is a late game tile improvement, huge for production. What's its base production?
I want to say 3 or 4, but it also costs. It makes a negative health point as well.
Yeah.
So you know the people that are working there. Not quite so happy. There's a little bit of pollution and stuff like that. So it costs some stuff to maintain, but it's a very solid. It's the best production tile improvement out there in the game, and that makes them that much better.
Yeah. Liquidity just makes it cheaper to buy units. So again, if you're hoarding all that, if you're making great money, you can spend it more efficiently. That's pretty cool. Civic Duty. So like previously in knowledge, where your populations were adding to culture and science. Now they're adding to production as well too, which is fantastic to have.
This is the one. Yeah.
Tell us about this one.
Yeah. So each city generates 0.2 health for every building, which sounds like not much, but you know, I've looked at my capital city late in the game and had almost 30 buildings, and across all your cities, it makes a big difference. The funny story about this one though is that it was originally called agoraphilia.
Yeah, that was my fault.
Yeah, it was.
Like, Oh, I love the marketplace. I love
Yeah,
you know,
so I like.
gathering.
I don't know Latin so much, but I'm familiar with like agoraphobia, which is like fear of open spaces
Yeah.
and lots of people and stuff. So I was like, agoraphilia, yeah, like because my idea for this was like, you know, your society has evolved to the point where they actually thrive in these really dense urban environments, and it
Yeah.
actually provides some sort of social good. And so I was like, yeah, agoraphilia makes sense. And then turns out, our writer Rex was writing Civilopedia entries for all these to give him a little bit of backstory.
Yeah.
And he did some research, which is good because we found out that agoraphilia also means sexual acts done in public.
Yeah.
So
Civ, a game that you learn by.
yeah, and so we changed it. We ended up changing the name to
Magna
Magna
Santi.
Santi, which is a wonderful 8 to 9 minute YouTube video.
Everybody go look it up after the live stream. After the live stream.
Yeah, not now. Stay here.
And finally, superior engineering. Orbital units stay in orbit 50% longer before deorbiting. So
Yeah.
those go up and stay up longer, and
hold on to that land in the air.
Exactly, and that also stacks with Slavic Federation's
It does.
orbital bonus as well too. And then their tier 3 kicker is plus 1%. So this is your additional 1% for your first 100 energy.
Yeah,
it's pretty fantastic. The level 3 synergy bonus
that's
is
probably
like
the best one.
more of everything. Although
Yeah.
I've never gotten that.
Yeah, it takes 10 tier 3 virtues. So if
Yeah,
you
but-
kind of go straight for it, you kind of bypass a lot of the useful early stuff and go straight into the depths of tier 3.
So you basically have to finish 2 trees and nothing else.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, and you have to kind of route your way through the first 2 tiers to, kind of get there as quickly as possible. But if you get there, it's just better at everything.
All right. So we're going to exit out of that. We did promise you we were going to talk about text, and we are going to talk about text, and I'm going to talk about text in the context of growth here in the last few minutes of our live stream today. This spot that I just cleared out is going to be the site of my next city, and there are logical reasons for this. It has tubers to provide you with food. So I'm going to turn on tile yields here real quick so you can see all of the cool stuff that are here. So the problem with it, though, is that it is basically up on the Arctic Circle. And they're not, even with my ability to grab tiles, I'm going to be grabbing a lot of desert, I'm going to be grabbing a lot of ocean, not going to be grabbing a lot of stuff, all in my pursuit of, we counted this earlier, there's 14 Foresight within 3 tiles working distance in the city and 10 floatstone. That's a tremendous amount of resources. That would be fantastic to have. So what I'm shooting for right now is the tech called Organics, specifically because it gives me access to the mass digester, which has 4 grower specialist spots, which means I can assign my population to work there, and they will give me food, which is good for expansion, and it gives me energy from tundra as well. There's also additional production from chitin, which I can get as a result of the biofactory. This is a chitin tile down here.
Right.
I'll get it eventually, and then get additional production that will help drive this city forward.
Yeah, the mass digester though, and there's a similar building for the desert tiles as well. There's a lot of buildings that you can get to kind of overcome the inherent disadvantages of what you might consider to be not as good terrain. Like, a tundra city or a desert city might not seem that great, but once you have the technology for it, you can really build buildings to overcome it, and actually it can even become more lucrative than some of the base cities.
Definitely. So let's take a look at one of the things we did want to show you as well is that there's a filter that we can apply to the tech web as well, and it will help highlight text. So, for example, we can filter by, show us just the Harmony text. And we can say, oh, well, this is where they're situated. This is what we have access to. This is what we need to aim for, and so forth. Because we're going kind of supremacy focused on this, obviously we want to look at supremacy. This shows us the text that we need to aim for, tactical robotics for access to the Cinder. Power systems, which adds additional production and energy to an already solid, makes things that are good better at what they do. This is the easiest way to do it. Master control, which is a wonder. The node, which heals units, which is very, very handy. Climate control, which I like a lot, provides food on tiles you own and will generate basic resources on unimproved tiles. So if you're expanding into an area, this is a very handy satellite to throw into orbit as well too. But again, obviously this is not going to be any new thing that an experienced civilization player is going to want to going to know, but you're going to want to look at the area that's around you and what you're planning to do to help you decide what text you're going to research next, what's going to be of maximum benefit for you.
Yeah, so kind of coming fresh out of the virtue screen, one of the things I'm noticing is, yeah, if we make a city right here, yeah, those
Right here on this hill.
Yeah, there's a lot of really great resources in range, but they're 2 or 3 tiles away. So looking at the map earlier, I noticed that Barre is still pretty far away. I don't think we have to worry about him coming up that peninsula.
Right.
And it looks like there's a lot of miasma, maybe even an alien zone,
Yeah.
kind of in that darkness there. So we probably wouldn't have to worry about it. But like if we really want to, we could push culture in that new city, start acquiring tiles much more quickly, get access to those resources much more quickly. And certainly once we have the mass digester from organics, that'll help with the tundra tiles up there as well.
Okay. All right. Well, that's what we wanted to show you guys today in the gameplay department. Thank you very much for joining us. I hope you found this informational. We're really excited to have the chance to work through the entire Virtue system, so you guys can go forth and create some cool strategies around this. We hope you'll join us next week for our live stream here, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central European time. Yeah. I know. And just a reminder, Civilization Beyond Earth is releasing on October 24th this year. That's a Friday. Everybody gets it on Friday. We are all European.
We have fans all over the world, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And we're very excited about that. And if you do pre-order now, the pre-order incentive is the Exoplanets Map Pack. It is a series of very cool map scripts that we've created to provide you kind of a specific approach to playing a particular planet. One of my favorites is that tilted axis planet. So half of the world is frozen, half of the world is desert, and there's this Goldilocks zone that kind of runs down the middle of it. It's very exciting to play on, especially against an aggressive, spready Civ. So, yes, I hope we'll see you next week, and have a great day.